Great. So let's go on to the last part. We've talked about all four of the tissues. We've talked about cells. Now it's time to talk about organs, which is really quick. But what you have is when you take a bunch of cells, an individual cell has a specific function. If you take a bunch of cells, different cells, put them together, but they all have similar functions and they have one goal, it's called a tissue. If you take a bunch of tissues, like you take connective tissue and muscle tissue and nervous tissue, and you put them all together, you make an organ when they all have the same goal. So if I have a stomach and its goal is to digest food and store food, and I have muscle that's there to grind the food, and I have epithelial tissue that's there to secrete things onto it, to protect the lining of the stomach, but also to secrete things like acids on it to break down food. And then I have, well, muscle again to pull the food down. And I look at all in the connective tissue holding it all together, and the nervous tissue telling it what to do. It's sending a communication from your brain saying, squeeze in the stomach, or digest food, or you're empty, so stop digesting. All these tissues working together for that one goal, I have an organ. If I take all these organs that have one purpose, like digestion, and put them together, organs, I have an organ system. So the digestive system would be your tongue and your esophagus and your stomach, small intestine, your large intestine, your pancreas, your liver, gallbladder. All these organs are there to help break down and process food. Together, the organs are called an organ system. If I take all the organ systems, so your nervous system, your digestive system, your urinary system, all of those, they're all there to do one thing, keep you alive. Because they're all working together, you're an organism. So all these organ systems working together for one goal is an organism. Right? So let's look at, in just this picture, oops, right here. So this is a layer of skin, protective organ, to make sure that you're not bleeding to death, you're not dehydrating by losing waters, to make sure that the immune cells are protecting you from invaders, all of it working together. If you see this dark layer on the top here, this is part of your epidermis, which is epithelial cells. That's the surface of your skin. Skin is an organ, it's not a tissue, right? So this epithelial tissue is your epidermis. Just below it, you'll have a layer of connective tissue, this light pink layer that goes right below. This is a loose connective tissue, so it's a different type of tissue. It has immune cells, so if something gets through your surface of your skin, your immune cells here kill it right away, so it doesn't get any deeper. Then we have this dense connective tissue. So we had some loose, the light pink. Now we have this dark pink full of fibers. It's dense, but it's not all in one line. I mean, I see some that are going sideways. I see some that are coming out at me. So what would it be, regular or irregular? It's irregular. So I have dense, irregular tissue that's going through here, right? And then I have some of these little round things. What is it? That, and that, and that. Those look like tubes. If I imagine a pencil, imagine it as a straw. I don't have any straws in here, but if you take the pencil and you look at it, you see that if it were a straw, it would be a hollow tube facing me. That's the same thing you have here, which is a hollow tube of a blood vessel. So if I look at it sideways, I see that long stringy vessel, but here I have some hollow tube. So there's epithelial tissue in that too. I have all of these things working together in my skin, right? The one goal of your body is homeostasis, and homeostasis is about balance. Make sure that you're not too hot, you're not too cold. If you get too hot, you sweat to cool you down. If you sweat too much, you get cold. Oh, have you ever been sweating really hard and playing, and then you walk into the shade and suddenly you're, oh, it's cold, right? Homeostasis keeps that balance. You get cold, you shiver. You get hot, you sweat. Back and forth, back and forth. To make sure that you don't have too much salt, but too little salt. If you don't have enough salt in your body, you'll die. If you have too much salt in your body, you'll die. To make sure your body's not too acidic or too basic. So too much acid, you die. Too little acid, too much base, you die. It's all about balance, and that's what all of your organs are doing, is to keep that balance between everything else. And I already mentioned this. Organ systems are all these organs working together. An organism is the entire structure. So if we looked at the skin, that's a good example of it. Let's look at another one. Let's pull out stomach. Oops, I pulled it out and sat it down and forgot what number it was. Number 15. Stomach. Let's wipe it off. Get some alcohol on my wipe. I'll take that off completely. All right. Make sure that my stage down, rotating nose piece, revolving nose piece on the red, scanning. Put my tissue right there in the center, and let's see what happened. Turn on my scope. Ooh, very close. It's almost like a game to see if I can nail it right in the middle. Swoop. There it is. Cool. So stomach is a lot like that skin that you see over there. See all the layers? You see the blood vessel? See it? Do you see it? Do you see it? It looks like a hollow tube. Blood vessel. Blood vessel. Blood vessel. This one you can see the red blood cells in the middle of it. See them? It's pretty sweet. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah. Lots of blood vessels. If I go back, I can see that's definitely muscle. All the fibers going in the same direction. And we got some muscle coming through here. Let's move around, see what we see if we know anybody. Oh. Alright, so I'm going to start at this edge over here on this side. And when I look at the stomach, I know that the stomach has 4 layers. I know that. So we have an outer layer here. This is the layer that kind of holds everything together. And you can see, oops, it has things like blood vessels. Oops, I have a problem moving straight across. It has some fat in it. It just kind of wraps and protects. It's a connective tissue. It's holding it all together. Just above that, I have muscle. Oops. Get away from the muscle. There we go. So we have these muscles. All of these are going the same direction. The outer layer of the stomach is called longitudinal muscles. You actually have 3 layers of muscle on your stomach. You have a long layer that goes continuous down your throat, all the way on the outside, and what it's doing is it squeezes the food down to push it. Squeezes. Okay. The layer under that, here's your long layer. You have another layer right here where the fibers are actually crisscrossing. So I have the long layer, but then I have a circular layer. This layer wraps around my stomach and squeezes it. Longitudinal pushes things the long distance. The circular squeezes it so I can grind my food, right? And you have a third layer, it's all the way on the inside. Oops. I'm trying to move the mouse to get the picture to go up. Yeah. Not this far inside, not all the way up here, but we have the longitudinal, we have the circular, and we have that last layer right through here. It's called oblique, and it goes one layer towards me, one layer crisscrosses that, and there's one that's diagonal in between. 3 layers of muscle. Then we have, oops, shut it off. Then we have what we call the mucosal layer. So it produces mucus. So we have a submucosal and a mucus layer. This layer that actually makes contact with the food secretes mucus, so we call it mucosal. Submucosal is right below it. In the submucosal, you'll find things like blood vessels, like these little vessels here, arteries and veins. So those layers, we can count on that. Those tissues, connective tissue, muscular tissue, I have nervous tissue, but I can't really see it without looking real close. Epithelial tissue that's protecting, going up and down. In fact, we can look a little closer at that if we just fine tune. you can see these cells, see the cells right here? There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, Bueller, Bueller, Bueller. And the same thing here. Actually, you can see them really well here. See how there's kind of striped cells coming up? They're a sheet protective covering. So if I were to doodle this or draw it, I would draw it something like this. So you can see this edge coming over here. And I have another edge that comes up, kind of like that. Comes back around. Looks like another one's coming up to here. Up. I can see as it comes along here, there's actually a layer striped. Boop, 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 boop. I can see the nuclei popping out here. I can see a nucleus, a nucleus. Okay, they look squashed. Squashed nucleus, squashed, squashed, squashed. Another one squashed. But I can see that. And then underneath is more, I don't call that organized. I see kind of the nucleus, some of those cells in here. But the thing is, right here, I see, what shape do I see? Oh, I almost wrote the wrong thing. They look smashed, but this is the surface right here, so these are actually columns. It's columnar epithelium. And it goes all the way along, creating protective barrier for things in the stomach to prevent it from getting into you. Only what you want to get in. So we have 4 layers. We have connective tissue, we have epithelial tissue, we have muscular tissue, and then, of course, we have nervous tissue, but we're not going to see it very well. That's an organ. We can actually compare to other animals out there, like cats or fish, because they have most of the same organs that we do. Animals that are closely related have very similar structures to each other. Like if you look at the lungs of a cat and the lungs of a human, our lungs are very similar. Same thing with a pig, very similar, because we're both land-walking animals. All 3 are land-walking animals, so we get our air the same way. We use muscle similarly. We have rib cages that are similar. You look at a fish, though, not the same. I mean, the fish have something like a rib cage that goes way further, but they don't have lungs. They have gills, so their muscle tone, the way that they work, has to work differently than us. So if we look at other land animals, we should see similar structures. It doesn't have to just be the lungs, it can be the GI tract. It's the way we get food and how we process food. Like, let's actually take a peek at some comparative anatomy.